Let's get into the Celtics and the Bucks series here. Sean Deveney covers the NBA for the Sporting News as the Sixers wrap up their series last night. They are going to wait now for the winner of this series between Boston and Milwaukee. And Sean joins us now here on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline with a closer look at that series and the NBA playoffs. Sean, welcome back to the show. What's up, pal?
How are you, Mike?
Doing well. In the building last night, wild crowd in Philly for the Sixers closeout there. They're the only team, really, that looks like they're taking care of business in an orderly fashion. You think in that series your covering is going to go for the full seven?
I do think so. You know, I mean, it's been such a home heavy series, and I think that happens with a team like Milwaukee that is, shall we say, mentally fragile. You know, they're a team that seems to fold pretty easily, and when they've been on the road and things haven't gone well, they collapse pretty quickly. And I think that you see that with Boston as well, just because they've got so many young guys who are sort of new to this whole thing. So I would expect Milwaukee. I think Boston wins the series. I expect Milwaukee. It'll probably be a closer game in Game 6. But I expect Milwaukee to win that one and bring it back to Boston for Game 7.
Now, Sean, oddly enough, we asked our listeners who they would rather face, Boston or Milwaukee. Not overwhelming, but a little bit of a majority going Boston. I was a little surprised by that because Boston, to me, seems like even though no Kyrie, we know Hayward's been out all year, it seems that team has still got some playoff moxie. They're very well coached, and they're a lot more physical than that Milwaukee team. That they would be a much tougher battle for Philly.
Yeah, I mean, you know, talent-wise, I think you don't want to face Milwaukee just because, you know, when you look at their roster, you look at who they've got, you know, they should be a better team than what they've been. They've been, you know, horribly coached over the last 2 years by Jason Kidd, and you really see the effects of that. So, you know, they wind up not being as much of a threat just because, like I say, they're mentally fragile. They don't play smart basketball. But the Celtics, you know, they do, and you know that's what makes them a little more dangerous. But, you know, in terms of the talent gap, you know, you put the Celtics as they stand against Philadelphia for 7 games, and you know, the talent is going to win out. There's no question about that. I could see wanting to play the Celtics just because, like I said, the talent just isn't there.
What is the – you look at Milwaukee, and obviously Antetokounmpo jumps off the page. What are they lacking? What is that team, you know, when you say the team that lacks the talent, the better talent will win, what is Milwaukee really lacking?
You know, I think they lack shooting, for one thing. You know, they really do need some guys who can step back and shoot. And you know, a guy like Mirza Teletovic isn't somebody who everybody knows, but, you know, he is sort of that stretch 4, and he hasn't played all year. He had a lung problem, so he hasn't played all year. I think that really did hurt them. But they need more than that. You know, they need more shooters than that. I think they also need, you know, a little more intelligence at the point guard spot. You know, you have Bledsoe, who's a lot of talent, but does not always play smart and doesn't do things to get the offense organized. You've got Dellavedova, who's, you know, let's say scrappy. Some might say dirty, but that's his game. He's not going to be your starter. And Malcolm Brogdon, you know, good player, good solid role player, but not really a starter either. So I think the point guard spot is still a sore issue for them. And then just shooting, that's the other thing that they're really lacking.
No, you wrote about Antetokounmpo with them on the brink of elimination, how all eyes turned on to him. You know, they have a chance to tie the series up and then send it back to Boston. Do you think that the Bucks are going to be able to do that and get this series extended? I know the Sixers are probably watching this thing hoping, hey, battle this thing out, go as long as you need to.
Right. Yeah, I'm sure they'd love to see a Game 7. Yeah, you know, and I think Antetokounmpo is really a key because what they did to him last night, they put Semi Ojeleye in, who's you know, rookie out of SMU, who's, you know, just offensively inept, but is a very good defensive player. And they decided that, okay, you know, we might only score 92 points, which is what they did, but we're going to do our best to limit what Antetokounmpo does by going small with Ojeleye on him. And Ojeleye did a great job, and you know, really, it's a team defense kind of thing. But Antetokounmpo only took 10 shots. And that's for a guy of his talent in a game of that magnitude, that's ridiculous. They've got to find ways to get him more shots. He said after the game that he put it on his own shoulders, and I think he's partly right. He was a little too passive, a little too much, looking for other players. He's got to be a guy who puts this thing on his shoulders, and he certainly did not do that in Game 5. It'll be interesting to see if he comes out and takes 20-plus shots in Game 6. I think they need that from him.
Hey, Sean, the Sixers-Heat series was like a fist fight every single night. I mean, it was unbelievably physical. What style have you seen in that Bucks-Celtics series?
Yeah, it's gotten physical, but it's sort of it's stupid physical. You know what I mean? It's not like when you watch Philly and Miami. That's the style that Miami plays, and Philly responded to it. It wasn't just all cheap elbows and things like that. We've gotten a lot of cheap elbows and things like that in Milwaukee and Boston. I think Milwaukee is a frustrated team. I think they understand that they haven't played this year the way they should, and I think some of that boils over when you get to the postseason here, and I think we've seen that from them. It's been physical, but it's been more chippy kind of physical rather than good, smart part of the game sort of physical that you like to see.
Are you surprised that Philly was able to, I won't say so easily, but 4-1? I mean, they were fights, they were some ugly games, but that they were able to quickly dispose of the Heat.
Yeah, I think that Game 4, that was really the difference, right? If when you look at that game and the numbers, some of the numbers that the Sixers had in that one, if Miami couldn't win that game, then you knew it was going to be all downhill from there because they had 26 turnovers and struggled to shoot the ball, and for Miami to somehow lose that game, you knew that was it. So I did think that this might be one that goes 6 games, or that was probably looked like the sweet spot for this series. But once that 4th game went to the Sixers, despite how poorly they played in so many areas, once you saw that, you knew that was going to be it for Miami.
When you're looking at this next game between the Celtics and the Bucks, they got to go on the road. Obviously, the game is in Milwaukee. What's your take? Can the Celtics win and close it out in 6, or does the games go back to 7 and have to go back to Boston?
Yeah, I think they can. I think it probably does go back to Boston, but I think Jaylen Brown was fantastic in Game 4, and they need that from him from the get-go. They can't do the thing where they fall behind by 12, 15 points and have to fight back. That's what they've been doing lately, or at least in the 2 road games in Milwaukee. They can't let themselves get into that. Be interesting to see what lineup Brad Stevens goes with to try to prevent that, whether he goes small again or goes back to Aaron Baines at center. If the Celtics are going to do it, they can't get that early deficit. I think they need another big game from Jaylen Brown. And they probably need something from Jason Tatum, who's really been up and down in this series. He's had a couple of really good games, and he's had a couple of games where he's completely disappeared. They need somebody who they can rely on as sort of a number 2 scorer, and Tatum should be that guy, and he hasn't necessarily been it in this series.
So when you're saying, because Horford had a pretty good game last week, or last game, 22 points and 14 rebounds, you think that even with that type of production, you think if they go small, it may give them a better chance to win the game on the road?
Yeah, and I think Horford plays center in their small lineup, so
yep.
He'll be out there. But I think that when they work their best, Horford is the number 3 scorer, and he scores around 13, 14 points. Yep. They get somebody who's in the 20s and then somebody in the high teens. That's their ideal setup. So they could certainly win with Al Horford scoring 20-plus points, but that's not ideal. They really want him to be a screen setter and a ball mover, and then sort of the third option as a scorer.
Do you think Smart coming back, how that changes the complexion of the playoffs moving forward? I know he's not a superstar, an all-star, but he's definitely a tough player for them.
Yeah, he brings a lot of energy. I mean, you saw it last night in limited minutes that he really did have an impact on the game. He's going to force a couple of turnovers that will surprise you. He's going to get under the skin of whichever guy he's guarding. It was mostly Chris Middleton last night, and he's been terrific in this series. So they really benefited from having Smart on him. So that can definitely help. But the Celtics' problem, let's face it, isn't necessarily their defense. Their defense has been pretty solid. What their problem is that they can't score, and Marcus Smart really doesn't change that. So obviously it's going to help, but they held them to 87 points, and Marcus Smart was certainly part of that. It doesn't help their major problem right now, which is no Kyrie Irving. You just don't have the offense, and that's going to remain a problem.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Sean, here's a question that all the Sixer fans and you, the NBA, you've seen these teams play. Who do the Sixers match up better? And if you were a Sixer fan, who would you want to see come into your building game one? Obviously, one of those games would be at home, and the other one would be on their own. But in that series, if you're a Sixers fan, who would you think the Sixers have a better chance of ousting and moving on?
Like I say, Milwaukee has the better talent, so that scares you. But I just don't think that mentally they're a team that can take advantage of if the Sixers make mistakes. The Celtics they're a very smart team. They don't shoot themselves in the foot very much, and defensively they're very sound. So I'd be more afraid of the Celtics, I guess, even though the talent. I think Philadelphia would beat either one of the teams, but I guess the Celtics would probably be a little more fearsome to me, just because they are a smart team. They're not going to beat themselves. If you commit 26 turnovers, the Celtics will probably win that game. That's sort of the difference there. And Milwaukee, they play dumb basketball. I mean, there's no other way to put it. They play dumb basketball, and you could beat guys who so easily beat themselves so often.
Yeah, the one thing that does worry, you mentioned that the Sixers been turning the ball over, and these games have been sloppy. They just have significantly more talent than the Heat do. Would you say that they have significantly more talent than Boston does?
Yeah, without Kyrie Irving, I would say so. Yeah, but again, I think the Celtics do a good job of finding matchups that can work for them. I think it'd be awesome to watch Al Horford and Joel Embiid for an entire series, because Horford does a pretty good job, or has done a pretty good job this year against Embiid in the limited number of games that they've played against each other. I think that would be just a tremendous matchup. I think it would be great for Joel Embiid because, like I say, Horford's a smart defender, and he's going to pull out all the tricks over the course of a 7-game series. I think that'd be great for Embiid in terms of development, to see how to attack a guy like that, to try to find the weaknesses, and to also see what Horford does to make up for some of his deficiencies. I think that would be fascinating to watch. But yeah, you still, I just think that over 7 games, I just don't know that the Celtics would have much of a chance.
Now, you just said development, and I want to ask you about how the Miami Heat, were they the perfect foe for the Sixers, who have never played a playoff game with this group? They haven't been in the playoffs in 6 years, to kind of give them on-the-job training of the physicality and what the playoffs feel like, yet they weren't really talented enough to take advantage of that. Was this the perfect foe for them in this, the coming out of this process?
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. That the Heat will let you know that they're there. They're going to try to push you. You saw that in Game 2.
Oh yeah.
I think Game 1 went so well for the Sixers that they were surprised by the way Miami responded in Game 2. And I think there's a lesson there, and that is you can win by 30 one night, but the next night you're going to face a team that's going to be a little ticked off and is probably going to get more physical. tackle and force the referees to make calls, and they're probably going to miss a lot of calls. You got to play through that. All those lessons. I think Miami did what they could because physicality is one of the few things they have going for them, and that's for a team like the Sixers that really hasn't been there. I think that is something that's important to learn.
Yeah, I kind of they seem like the perfect get you ready for the next it's like the young up and coming heavyweight fights the old veteran guy who sits there and takes your punches for those rounds, and the young guy's just waiting for that one shot that he's knocked everybody else out with, and that old guy just won't let him. He's going to make you beat him on points. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly right. And Eric Spoelstra's a fantastic coach, and like I said, talk about Milwaukee being a team that can beat itself. Miami's a team that doesn't beat itself, that was obvious in that series.
Some other quickies with Sean Deveney from the Sporting News, covers the NBA. You got Boston, Milwaukee tomorrow in the game number 6, so we'll certainly have our eyes on that. But tonight there's some real interesting one. Game 5, Washington, Toronto. I mean, not normally does the 8 seed give the 1 seed a scare, but is Washington a legit scare for the Raptors?
Washington's also not your usual 8 seed, I mean, when you look at it, they had John Wall out for, a month and a half. And now that he's back, he's playing much more like himself. They're playing like themselves. They were a number 4 seed, threatening to be a number 3 seed before Wall went down. So they're more like, they're playing more like a 4 seed. It's a tough matchup for Toronto. You feel bad that, Toronto went through all these lengths to try to be a better playoff team, and then they get really just a terrible matchup in the first round. So I think this will be a difficult one for the Raptors. Obviously, this is a must-win for them, and I think they will. I really think that that this is a team that's ready to take that next step in the playoffs.
Is Cleveland in legit trouble, or does LeBron figure out a way to get out of this series?
I think they'll get out of the series, but I think the trouble's still there. They've been such a bad team defensively all year, and that's shown itself here in the playoffs. Even though the numbers aren't great for Indiana, you can see that there are stretches where the Pacers do things, whether it's Bogdanovich or it's Ben Oladipo at times, where the Pacers have pretty good responses to everything that the Cavaliers do defensively. And then, right now their offense just looks so predictable. You're going to get a shot from LeBron, or he's going to drive and kick it out to a three-point shooter who's probably going to miss. And, that's been their offense, and they really haven't had a plan B. I mean, why not get Kevin Love going in the post? Why not get something else going besides just drive and kick from LeBron, and they have not done that. So if they get past Indiana here, I think that going up against Toronto most likely in the next round, that's going to be a problem. They're going to have to find some other offensive options besides just handing it to LeBron and say, hey, do something with it.
It's interesting. It's so funny that you say that, because he's had actually worse teams that he's led to the conference championship or even into the NBA finals. But that was on young, fresh legs when he basically willed some teams to the finals. And when you're LeBron right now, and you were, as you said, the thing is the drive and kick. Well, back in the day when that wasn't working, he would just take, there's nobody off the dribble that can guard him and go to the hoop. Nobody. If he wants to get to the hoop, he's getting to the hoop. But over the course of a game, that's okay. But over a course of a physical 7-game series, that takes a lot out of you. So I just don't know if he's going to be able to, like you said, will this team to the finals unless another guy steps up.
Yeah, and I think something to keep in mind too is that in recent years he's really kind of focused on the playoffs during the regular season, where he's taken days off, he's had a lot of rest, he's cut back his minutes. He's played more minutes this year, I think, in any year since I think it was 2012, and he hasn't taken games off. He played the whole season. So this is a guy who is used to sort of pacing himself and then being ready for the playoffs. Now, not only is he being asked to carry this huge load in the playoffs, but he's coming in, a little more spent than he usually is. I do wonder if you're right on that's not just the load he's carrying in the playoffs, but the load that he carried in the regular season. maybe that catches up to him at some point here in the playoffs. Certainly he's looked good individually so far here in this series, but we're only 4 games in. If these series go longer than expected, if they go 6 to 7 games, and he still has to keep carrying this load, I think that's going to be tough on him.
And keep in mind, too, because of the fact that they basically turned over his roster 1.5 times during the season, the practice time, that also is critical, because in the past, if he had his team and established, he doesn't really have to go hard in practice. He actually can probably take some practices off. But when you have those guys coming out there and you need to build team chemistry, he needs to be out there running through the plays, running, live 5-on-5, full court, to get his guys acclimated to playing with him, not just in the games but in practice. So I think that's another thing to look at, that he may not have all his wind in his wheels.
That's
as
a good point.
The game goes on.
He's got to maybe practice more based on the fact that he's got to learn these guys.
Yeah, not him. I know Allen Iverson. I guess, but and we know about the practice rant.
How am I going to make others better by practice?
And I know he didn't need practice, but what he failed to understand is he needed to be in practice so that he could help the other guys play with him better, and that's something that I know LeBron realizes.
Yeah, and he's 33 years old.
Good point. Good point.
He's as old now as he's ever been, right? So that's and it's going to continue to get worse. So yeah, that's definitely something to keep an eye on.
2 West ones. Houston they had that monster quarter the other night. You feel that Houston's now firmly in control there?
Yeah, you hate to put that much onto 12 minutes, but certainly through the first few games. You're looking and you're saying, all right, where's this Houston team that we saw during the regular season that won, 64 games and was such an offensive juggernaut? They really struggled to shoot the ball, and then it all just exploded right there in that third quarter in Game 4. And I think that did make, did seem to set things right. We'll see if they can carry that over into Game 5 and put this thing away. Certainly if from Mike D'Antoni, you're trying to make that point to them that it would be nice to end this thing sooner rather than later. I think they will. I think they found their offense, and they'll carry that into tonight.
And Sean, this Oklahoma City thing. Utah, they end this thing. This Oklahoma City thing's a mess.
Yeah, it really is. I wonder what happens next. Obviously, you have Paul George is a free agent. You wonder what do they do with Carmelo Anthony? Do they try to buy him out? Do they try to see if anybody will take him in a trade? That's going to be a question. What do they do with Billy Donovan? Is he possibly in trouble if they lose here? So I think that certainly Utah has pushed all their buttons, but they have not responded. And if you're Sam Presti, the GM there, I think you have to sit back and say, okay, maybe we need to reevaluate what direction we're heading in here.
All right, Sean Deveney, NBA writer for the Sporting News here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3. All
right, one question for you. We're going to let you go. This is a tough one here. This is. I know you're in the middle of the Sixer land, but want your honest opinion since you cover them both. Who gets the Rookie of the Year? The guy from we just mentioned about out Utah, who obviously is unbelievable, or the hometown guy in Ben Simmons?
Well, I do have a vote in this, and I did cast my vote. And so you could, if you don't believe me, then they produce all of our votes. They put out a sheet that has all of our votes, and I voted for Ben Simmons. I just think what he's done. I do object to having second-year players basically being counted as rookies, but as long as it's the rule, as long as that's what it is, then that's how I've got to vote. And to me, as good as Mitchell was. What Simmons did in every aspect of the game, defensively, offensively, playmaking, rebounding, every aspect of the game, he's got to be the Rookie of the Year.
Would you be okay with co-Rookie of the Years like a lot of people have said?
Boo.
Yeah, but
That's Mike's opinion.
I don't understand because the only way that can happen is if the vote is tied.
Right.
And so, we're not allowed to vote for a tie. So, I don't know that could possibly happen. I think it winds up being Simmons. Just people that I've talked to, I think it goes Simmons and then Mitchell will be number 2.
All right, Sean Deveney, he's covering that Boston-Milwaukee series. That continues tomorrow night. Thank you, Sean.
All right. Thanks, guys.